In the fall of 1962, on the biggest rhythm and blues tour in America, two men were traveling side by side. Same buses, same hotels, same backstage corridors. Every night, the same question hung in the air, not asked by the audience, but by the two men themselves. Who was better? James Brown never asked it out loud, but everything he did before walking on stage every night was an attempt to answer it. Jackie Wilson never asked it either, but the look on his face when he came off stage suggested he already knew the answer. These two men existed alongside each other and against each other for a decade. Children of the same era, heirs to the same music, owners of the same stages. But they never did exactly the same thing, because saying they did would mean failing to understand what either of them actually was. This is the story of two rivals, and at the same time, the story of two people who understood each other more deeply than almost anyone else in the world could.
James Brown was born in 1933 in Barnwell, Georgia. He was only 1 year older than Jackie Wilson, but the distance between their childhoods was not measurable in years. Brown's early life was beyond hard. His father left when he was young. For a time, he was raised in his aunt's house, which was, in reality, a brothel. He learned to survive on the streets, stole to eat, was arrested, sent to a juvenile detention facility. He found music inside that darkness, and music saved him. But the darkness inside James Brown never fully left. It moved on to the stage. It became fuel. James Brown on stage was a machine. Discipline, control, an absolute demand for perfection. He ran his band with military precision. Fines for wrong notes, fines for wrong steps, fines for showing up late. Every movement was calculated. Every beat was intentional. He believed that greatness was built brick by brick through iron will, and that belief was visible in every second of every performance he ever gave. But there was something underneath the machine that people who watched him closely could feel. A fury that had never been fully resolved, a hunger that no amount of success could completely satisfy. James Brown performed like a man who was still proving something to the world that had failed him as a child. Every show was a settlement of a very old debt. Jackie Wilson came up out of the poor neighborhoods of Detroit, a different kind of poverty, a different way of surviving. Boxing had taught him discipline, but what Jackie carried onto the stage was less about discipline and more about freedom. On stage, he didn't plan, he felt. Every night was different because every night he invented himself again from the beginning. James Brown's stage ran like a clock, precise, reliable, every part in its place. Jackie Wilson's stage ran like a river. You never knew exactly where it was going, but you were carried there regardless. By the late 1950s, both men had reached the top of their respective worlds, but the top was a lonely place, and each of them looked up and found someone else already standing there.
The 1962 Biggest Show of Stars tour brought together dozens of artists under one traveling roof. Weeks on the road, dozens of cities, a new stage and a new audience every single night. James Brown and Jackie Wilson were both on it. They sat near each other on buses sometimes. They shared the same narrow backstage hallways. They crossed paths in the same worn-down hotel lobbies, the same cheap diners, the same early morning gas station stops in the middle of nowhere between cities that blurred together after enough weeks on the road. And every night they watched each other perform. When James Brown watched Jackie, he was taking notes, mentally, systematically. He tracked which moments the audience responded to and how, what Jackie did to produce those responses, how he moved from one emotional register to another within a single song. Brown's internal calculator never stopped running.
Watching a rival wasn't entertainment for him, it was intelligence work. Jackie Wilson watched James Brown differently. He wasn't taking notes, he was simply watching, the way one musician watches another when the competition falls away, and what's left is just the music. He had genuine admiration for Brown's stage discipline, for the machine-like precision of it, for the way Brown's band operated as a single unified force under his complete control. That admiration didn't dissolve the rivalry, but it gave the rivalry a texture that kept it from becoming something ugly. One night backstage, after a show had ended and the corridor had emptied out, James Brown turned to Jackie Wilson and asked him something directly. "How do you do it without a plan? How does it come out right every time when you haven't mapped it out?" Jackie thought about it for a moment. Then he smiled. "I don't plan because the audience always breaks the plan anyway. I listen to what they're telling me." James Brown stood there in that corridor for a moment, turning the answer over. Whether he liked it or couldn't argue with it, from the outside you couldn't tell. Maybe both were true at the same time. That exchange captured something essential about what made their relationship unlike any other rivalry in the history of American music. They were competing for the same thing, and they knew it, but they were competing with tools so different that the competition could never be fully resolved by any single performance or any audience vote. Midway through the tour, on a night in Georgia, the program changed. Both names had been placed on the same evening, back to back, same stage, same audience. James Brown would go first. Brown walked out and went to war. That night was different from his usual performances, more intense, sharper, more relentless, as if the knowledge that Jackie Wilson was standing in the wings had unlocked a gear he didn't normally reach. His band was drenched in sweat 50 minutes in. The audience was on its feet, responding to every move, every command Brown issued from the stage. The show ended. Brown walked off. And Jackie Wilson walked on. The first few seconds were critical. The audience was still vibrating from James Brown's energy. Jackie felt it. In whatever plan he may have had, he changed it in that moment. He started slow, deliberately, almost provocatively slow. By the time the first chorus arrived, the audience had gone quiet. The slowness had pulled them in, created a space they wanted to fill. Then he came open. And when he did, it came from a completely different place than where James Brown had left off. Brown was rhythm, power, the machine. Jackie was melody, story, the human being reaching toward another human being across a stage. The audience responded to both, but from different places inside themselves. Brown had lifted them to their feet. Jackie moved something that didn't have a name. By the end of the night, backstage, the two men came face to face. James Brown looked at Jackie Wilson for a long moment. Then he said, "You didn't beat me. I couldn't have beaten you either. We're doing different things." Jackie Wilson smiled. "Yes," he said, "and we're both the best at what we do." That wasn't arrogance, it was accurate, and both men knew it. James Brown's approach said rehearse everything, control everything, leave nothing to chance. Jackie Wilson's approach said know yourself well enough to respond to anything, trust the moment, let the audience lead you somewhere neither of you planned to go. Both produced greatness. What the tour revealed was that greatness was not a single road.
The years passed. Both men continued on their own roads. James Brown became the godfather of soul. His discipline, his work ethic, his absolute commitment to the stage shaped a legacy that built the foundation of funk music and influenced generations of performers who came after him. Jackie Wilson kept performing, under the shadow of Brunswick Records, with most of his money disappearing into other people's accounts, without the recognition the full scope of his talent deserved. He kept walking out on stage, because the stage was the one place where none of that other reality could reach him. In 1975, when Jackie Wilson collapsed on stage at the Latin Casino in New Jersey, James Brown received the news.
He went quiet for a long time. Then he said, "There was nobody like him." I say that as someone who spent years trying to prove there was. That sentence was not a small thing coming from James Brown. He did not give that kind of acknowledgement easily or often. But when it came to Jackie Wilson, he couldn't speak any other way. Because in those years on the road, in those backstage hallways, on those shared stages across America, James Brown had seen something in Jackie Wilson that he recognized as genuinely beyond category. Jackie Wilson had shown him something about the stage that Brown's own approach couldn't fully account for, that planning was not the whole answer, that sometimes the audience needed to be followed rather than commanded, that the most powerful moments were sometimes the ones that arrived uninvited. Brown never fully absorbed that lesson into his own work. His nature wouldn't allow it, but he understood it, and understanding something you cannot do yourself and giving full credit for it anyway is its own form of respect. Rivalries like theirs are rare, the kind where competition doesn't curdle into contempt, where the desire to be better than someone remains inseparable from a genuine respect for what that someone is, where the other person's excellence doesn't diminish you but sets a standard that keeps pulling you forward. Very few people in Jackie Wilson's life saw him clearly. The music industry saw a product. Brunswick Records saw a revenue stream. Audiences saw a performance. James Brown saw a peer. And that matters. In a life marked by exploitation and financial betrayal and the systematic undervaluing of what he had built, the fact that James Brown, the most demanding, the most competitive, the least easily impressed performer of his generation, looked at Jackie Wilson and said there was nobody like him, is a form of justice that the music industry itself never delivered. It doesn't pay back what was taken, it doesn't restore the royalties or the recognition or the years, but it is something real, said by the person most qualified to say it. Jackie Wilson died in January 1984. James Brown died in December 2006. Two kings, both real, both irreplaceable, and both, in the end, defined as much by the existence of the other as by anything they did alone. If Jackie Wilson's story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. This channel is dedicated entirely to Jackie Wilson, his triumphs, his losses, and everything that happened behind the curtain. Drop a comment below, Jackie Wilson or James Brown. Leave your answer.